Okay, so next is to make the roto shape. So with the so when you're starting a roto, I usually try and pick the frame that has the most points and detail and the most stable. Something that's not in between the motion blur, since that can definitely throw off your scene if you're picking a stable, if you're going there next to a stable image. So this is a good clear image to pick. This shape stays consistent. So try and use as less points as possible. Try and see where you can start a point and not start a point. We'll be fixing the points soon. Alright, so once you've done your shape, highlight, so click and drag, highlight all your points, so press Z. So, and press Z, I usually press it 2 times. This just averages out all the points, and then you can go clicking the points and warping them to the image. Let's just say you want to single out only this one, press Control, click on the points, click this one, press Z, or let's just correct it, and do this for all points and groups just to get a good crisp cutout. Okay, so once you've done that, most people might be confused with with the tracker. How do you view this with the tracking data? Since we put down the tracking data in, some of it could be stationary for some people. So for me, I placed a merge node with the roto and turned down the opacity mix all the way down to 0 since it shows black. Since this view is just viewing the actual cutout. So without the mix, without turning the mix down, it just goes black, which I don't want. So I turn the mix down on the merge node. I can see the roto shape being tracked onto it, and everyone is happy. So now we want to preview our mask in a non-biased way. So we're just seeing the map purely by itself. So the background's not showing in, or if we're putting too much of the roto into the actual shape where we are cutting out. So these two viewers then come into play. First, let's just click these options here to get rid of any clutter, unnecessary clutter. I have manually made these two groups called the red and the grey. What these groups are is previewing your mats based on a background, be it be grey or red. The red isn't a background, it's an overlay within the shape itself, where the grey is seeing the cutouts and the background behind it. Depending on what you're rotoscoping behind, you can be biased between the red and the grey, so you're not chasing your tail. Oh, the red looks out of place. Oh, the grey looks out of place. That decision you have to make for yourself, so there's a lot of responsibility for that. Make sure you pick the right one. Grey is something that's, I guess, more forgiving, and the red is something that is a lot more strict. For tutorial sake, we'll be viewing both of them. So, in order to connect the nodes properly, obviously you've made your viewer 2 and your viewer 3. Let's just connect those two together. Put your plate, which I've labeled here, into the plate dot here, and the I should put like a, put your roto here in the A pipe for the grey. And these can share the same roto. It might get a bit cluttered, but we're not looking for node script cleanliness, even though it's highly appreciated. Almost a necessity. And the same thing for the red, put the plate in this dot and the mask in this dot for the viewing overlay. And in each of the viewer, be sure to turn the roto line off by pressing Q in the latest Nuke, and the same in the red overlay. So let's view our script. Let's view our node frame in the grey, in the grey, it looks pretty spot on. Looks pretty good. In the blurring that we made, we are going to bump the blurring up to about 1. Not much. Probably even 1, not 2, just to make it less pointy. In the red, however, it shows a different story. So it shows something that we can't see in the working. This is where people get caught up in when they're doing tons and tons of fixes that I saw mostly in university studies in TAFE. This is what your mat will look like in its bare final quality. Now, you can't see this here. Oh, actually you can, now that I've looked back at it. But you really have to zoom in into the pixel. When your supervisor is viewing this on a loop, you can't really tell where the problem is, where here on the red you can see a clear example. These edges aren't fine, these edges aren't fine, you have to fix it. So, you can either do a combination of highlighting the selected areas that need to be changed. To do this properly, you do not manually change the points. That is something that is not advisable. If you can get away with it, go ahead, but in this case you can't. So the best way to do this is to highlight all of it and to click in the center and move it around. Fix it up a bit. So this section's out. If it's really minute, then you're going to have to manually change it. But if it's a group-based, definitely just move the group out. Another way is to do planar warping. I was going to save this for its own separate shape, but for planar warping, you highlight it. You highlight the points that you want to change. You press Control and Shift, and you click the point, and you can warp it into place, which is extremely helpful and avoids any jiggling that you see in a fast, real-time moving shape. This is very crucial to use. Highlight, Control, Shift, and warp your shape. So, as you can see here, this needs to be changed. Now, you may see the corrections coming into the grey. However, it shouldn't be confused with the background feathering. Even though it's white, once it's on a background, it won't technically show up. If it does, you can go to the erode and nudge it back in. But it's quite clear that it's not as bad as how it was before. So now it's a nice average between the red and the grey. And if you really get pedantic with it, just see if you can, looking at both with each change, see which one is good. So not too much white here, and it is pretty much covering it, apart from this section here. Yeah, well, the top here needs to be fixed. Okay. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so next, now that you have a first full awesome shape, be sure to turn on the motion blurring. In the motion blur, you do not go here. I rarely do. Click the motion blur tag here. This, just one click it, and label this head. I thought I called that hand. Head. It already exists. Oh, bugger. Oh, that's because I changed the root to it. Hand shape. Head shape. Oh, wow. Confused myself now. Head shape. Okay, so now be sure to change the shifting, the keyframe number here to 5. This makes your snapping a lot more easier. We're going to go to snapping right now. So when you want to change to the next shape, I usually pick the master frame. I then pick the starting frame and the end frame. It's good to have the start and ends done to see the shape, to have the shape morphing into it, than to do it each frame forward, starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will cause a lot of jiggling, a lot of just, it wouldn't look good. The roto shape would not look good. So go to the first frame by clicking Alt and arrow. This sequence starts at frame 1, so be sure to change that in the frame range. See, always change it. That's always learn. Always learn. So at frame 1, by clicking Alt and left arrow, highlight it all, bring it in. Since it's a motion blur heavy frame, we're going to have to create that motion blurring by going back a few extra frames in this, which I'll go to soon, since we can't really judge it now. So as close as you can, just align it as best as you can. We'll probably be doing a lot more changes soon. Yeah. Just try and find the average spots within the motion blurring. Okay, so now to snap between each points, highlight the Alt keys and go to and press the left and right arrow. This snaps between each keyframe. This is very crucial into seeing changes fast, seeing your keyframe masks fast, and it's easier than just to do this and that and that. Snap between the two, make your corrections fast, and try and get the mat done as fast as possible. Now, to see the average between these two keyframes, you press Control, click, and it finds the average for it. Shift goes to the keyframe that you set it to, which is 5, but we're going to be focusing on the average frame here. So let's change this again. Okay, so now we have some sort of an idea. The motion blur is very heavy on this, so as best as you can, try and find an average between the feathering, the motion blurring, and the shape. So for this, I might resort to the blurring. So on the starting frame, which we picked was this, put a keyframe for the blurring. Go to your number 1 frame, and let's crank this blurring up a bit. Okay, that looks way better. And let's punch out some of these points here. Try and find the average. So this is strength to the motion blur. This wouldn't look good if it's a still frame. Far too blurry. In terms of finding the average, you can see this stopping points here and the hard points here, so I'm going to try and fit it in between. Once you've put a keyframe blurring on, you can resort to the feathering technique. However, if you have many of these feathering techniques, it gets very problematic, which I don't really like, the word I don't really like to use, very quickly. So try and use as many different options as possible. So to get a feathering, highlight the points you want and press E. This brings out a nice fade off tool, which definitely helps with the mat itself, which I may have to use here a bit, or I can just bring this out, not showing too much white, kind of is, and then bring it down. To reset it, press Shift E, which gets rid of it, E, Shift E to get rid of it, so that helps quite a lot. It's all shortcuts you have to focus on. Okay, so in both ones looks pretty solid. Press Alt next, and let's follow up with the changes in that. The tracking that we did before eliminates any location-based transforms, which if the transform's all in the roto shape, it can cause a lot of trouble when you want to debug your roto. Causes a lot of unnecessary clutter in terms of keyframes. Everything is fixed. The location's all fixed, done. It's just warping changes, which is very helpful. Okay, next frame. Heavy motion blur on this frame here, so find the average. The average is here. That's pretty sharp there. So for this frame, we'll resort to the feathering. You may think that some motion blurring isn't apparent. You'd be mistaken. You'll be rotoscoping just motion blur shapes of feet. Even though the mat looks totally correct on your end, the shape itself, it could just be squiggles. This happens in feature film productions quite a lot. Since the blurring is keyframed on the master frame and the starting frame, we can change it quite easily here. No dramas. Yeah, that's so good. I'm trying to find a nice blend between the grey. The red looks pretty good, but now the grey is starting to seep in a little, so you have to be very conservative in what you're trying to pick. Trying to find a nice average between the two. Okay. And the master frame. So we have our in-between frames. These are all the in-between frames right now, so come on. Yeah. And what do I want to be biased on? Let's be biased on the grey at the moment, so let's preview that. Okay, looks pretty good. Doesn't look terrible. Now, when you're working on your intervals, be sure to work on a 10 by 10 basis for it, since like a 10 frame, 10 frame, 10 frame, just so it makes your keyframing a lot more simple. Now, in-betweening, try and look at which frame can be taken out, because if you have like a keyframe, if you have a frame by frame, which odds are it will probably be the case in most features, but if you can get away with not doing anything in that one frame, definitely take advantage of it. So this is frame 2 that hasn't been touched. Do we have to do any changes for it? I think we have to nudge it, so nudge it down a bit. I think most of the top. Yeah, that looks good. Red looks good. On the red, if I really want to be anal, I can change that. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah. Tuck this in a bit more. Theoretically, I should be covering it all. So, yeah. I'm a bit worried that in the red it's not going all the way up, but I'm sure the blurring is taking care of that, since in the grey I can't see any of that whiteness. I'm actually starting to see whiteness here, so be sure to look at both if you think one's not good than the other. This one here I can see on number 3 I might have to do a correction. On the red it looks a bit too not on it. 4, can we get away with it? I think we can cover up a bit more motion blurring. Same on this side, not too much, just punching out a bit more. Keep the grey in check, so sometimes when you press E it goes too much out, which is very annoying, so punch those back in. These ones you can probably disable it for this keyframe, since it's pretty cut clear. That red showing. Okay, next fairy keyframe. So this is where the motion blurring comes to an end and the beauty frame comes up. Now, when the beauty frame, I picked the one that has 0 motion blurring. However, this frame here has like 0.1 motion blurring, but my feathering is still stuck at a very fat feather, which is not doable. So for this frame, not frame 6, but for frame 7, right next to it, disable the feathering. We have to fix it up, so punch it out, punch it back in, use as many points as possible. Keep in mind that all in-betweening I'm doing is just for tutorial's sake. I will be doing master keyframes every 10, like I said before. Fixing those beauty keyframes first, and then moving on to the in-betweening. So for this point, I can probably punch it out. So the blurring is on 0.1, so that's taking care of it. Even though the shape looks like it's going to the white now, it's technically not, because in the grey you can't see any whiteness because the blurring's taking care of it. It's so good having these grey and red checks in real time. And let's see frame 6. Yeah, grey looks pretty good, but in the red shows a different story. Bit too much blackness, black pixels showing, too many dark pixels. This shape is a bit off, and let's change that point. Control click, bring that in, bring that out, in. We can disable this feathering for this keyframe. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Too much white for that. Bring that in, bring that in. Bring all of that in. Actually, bring it out. I'm not happy with it, but it definitely gives a point across. Alright, so if we want to check this 6 frames in detail on loop. So as you can see, the tracking helped a lot with the camera shaking, since it's a battlefield. The camera has a lot of shake to it, but the head is locked off and the motion blur is there, and 5 frames are done. However, you wouldn't be working on these 5 frames. You'll be working on your beauty frame. So the beauty frame was 8, 1, and the rest would be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Since we don't have 6 hours on us, which is a reality for rotoscoping, I'll be going to the end 10 frames. So let's go to frame, let's see, the one with the least motion blur. The ending frame looks like it has a lot less motion blur, which makes our lives a lot more easier. So frame 77. So let's, since the tracking's put the roto shape to it, all we have to do is do a few changes. Now, if this was like a real life setting, the shape between here and the shape between here is not very different, but I would probably be going to where the shape changes. So it changes here. So just for this tutorial, I will actually be doing that. So it actually changes here, and then here. So the transition starts here. So for the whole entire keyframe, I'm just going to make a keyframe, and I'll just align it as best as I can, just so I can work on the ending for you guys. So you probably won't, I'll probably just skip this for you. So bam, you have a transition, no, not a very good one. But you have the shape changes radically, which I'll show the leg. Definitely do it on that transition. So now that shape's just taken care of us for tutorial's sake, we'll be doing the ending frame. So frame 77. Actually, it's frame 76. So let's just change it. The points that the original shape was made on, be sure to keep that same proportion. So try and find an average when you're moving your points. Group it and snap between the two. So I'm snapping between that transition and the start. So here is when you may have to think about changing your shapes, which I didn't think about during the beginning, but here we have this loop here, and it wouldn't look too good if you were to curve this, because then all of this shape here is being taken out. So you can add points here and make sure that it's not affecting your previous shapes. But you can do it, you can add points, but it's not advisable. You'll definitely consider just changing your shape up. And let's add a curve. Okay. And let's fix the others. That point is here. Keep that there. Keep the shape consistent, even though the head is being covered by the collar. You have to keep to your original shape. Overlap it. Do not do this. Keep the shapes consistent as possible. Let's expand that out. Expand this. You can probably put another point here. I probably would. Do not have any swimming points. Okay. Now that we have a rough outline, the red looks horrible, but the grey looks good, so let's add a little bit of feathering to that. So with the blurring, let's put the blurring up a bit. Looks better. Probably 2.2. Oh yeah, that looks way better. Then let's bring out you can see this here's not good, so bring that out, control click, cover that up. That's a few pixels out. Bam, bam. Okay, so that's the ending frame. Let's go frames, what was that, 76, 86, no, 60, 66. That's 10. The tracking obviously does a really good job, but let's just nudge this section only a bit, this section quite a lot. You're moving it proportionally. Very little. Now this is a very sharp frame, so I'm probably going to turn down the blurring down quite a lot once I've gotten the points all set up. Now, even though the hand is covering it, keep the shapes consistent, so the nose is theoretically behind there. Bam. Red looks not good. Actually, turn down the blurring down. That looks better. And let's bring that up. So here, you can't see any of the grey, and you can't see any of the hat. You can't see any white, and you can't see any hat. Even though on here, you're seeing all this black. It's like, oh, I'm going out of shape. No, you're not, because the blurring takes control of it, which makes this previewing very crucial for rotoscoping. Now, there's some points here that I can see that are not good, but you get the gist. Yeah. Sweet. All good. This is terrible. Look at that. Look how far that's out. Look how much extra detail, even here, it's not showing. That would have been frame 66, head point, change it. Back here needs fixing. The red is the non-forgiving one, as they all say. And not background showing, not hat showing, even though it tells a different story in here. So now that we have those beauty. Keyframe's done. Let's do some in-betweening again. So what do? Alt. Find the average. No, Control. Control click average. Now this is where the motion blur starts kicking in. So let's find the average where the line should be. Let's put the blurring up a bit. I'm going like dot decimal points, just keep that in mind. Can we get away with? I think we can get away with feathering it off a bit. Yep. That looks good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Average it again. And let's disable the feathering, and let's see where feathering needs to be. So, feathering needs to be put on this side for sure. Put that down, put this one here. This doesn't need feathering. Whoop. That doesn't need feathering. That doesn't need feathering. This shape is out. Put that red back in. Give it a curve. This needs feathering quite a lot. What about this? Can I not feather this? I think I do. That doesn't need. This line here doesn't need feathering. Can I get away with that? Yep, I can get away with that. Yup. Alright. Next average. Yikes. Yeah, that looks good. I can disable the feathering on here now. That's pretty sharp. That's sharp. This is pushing it a bit, but I have to take those points out. So the grey is very forgiving. It's when you go too far with the red. So the red is something you have to keep most an eye on. If you're doing garbage masks, grey is probably your best bet, unless it's pretty detailed. The red, it's still not good. I have to take that out more. Better. Bam. Alright, so I'm not going to do the in-betweening for this since we did in the beginning, but repeat the same in-betweening. Use a combination of your planar, combination of your blurring, feathering when it really requires it. Disable any bits that was feathering but is now sharp, like this point here. Every time you go onto a new keyframe, be sure to cancel out the feathering and put it to where it needs to be done. If you do this for all your beauty points, so every 10 frames, average that out, average it out, average it out, average it out. And then when you're up to a good point where the whole entire frame set is keyframed with beauty points, you can then start working in the nitty-gritties for each 10 frames until you get a solid mask, and then it's just looking for those 1 frames which is just so out of place like that. And that's with your tracking, that was with your tracking shape. So the next will be the foot shape, where killing keyframes and starting a new fresh shape is pretty much crucial for clothing. Clothing is something that is a big part in visual effects, since most people are wearing clothes and it's not just faces and hands. So it'll be the next stage.